Open your junk drawer right now, or your wardrobe, or that corner of your room you have been meaning to sort out for the past 3 years. Now try to throw something away, not everything, just one thing. Notice what happens. There is a pull, a hesitation, a voice that says, but what if I need it someday? That voice is not clutter. That voice is ancient, and it has a very good reason for being there. Most people assume the problem is laziness, or sentimentality, or some personal weakness that organized people simply do not have. But that is not what the science says. What the science says is stranger and considerably more uncomfortable. Because that voice telling you to keep things is not a flaw in your psychology. It is one of the most successful survival mechanisms your species ever developed. And it is running right now in your brain, in a world it was never built for. Let us start with a number. 300,000, that is the average number of items inside an American home. The average person uses about 20% of them regularly. The other 80% sits untouched, unworn, unopened, unneeded. And yet getting rid of any of it feels genuinely difficult. Not metaphorically difficult. Measurably neurologically difficult. Because in 1980, two psychologists discovered something that changed how we understand human decision-making entirely. Their names were Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And what they found was this. Losing something feels roughly twice as bad as gaining the equivalent thing feels good. Twice. Not a little worse, not slightly more unpleasant. Twice as powerful. They called it loss aversion. And it is not a personality trait. It is not something some people have and others do not. It is a feature of human cognition so consistent that it has now been measured in every culture on Earth. Rich, poor, minimalist, collector, it does not matter. Your brain is wired to feel loss more intensely than gain. Always. But here is what Kahneman and Tversky did not fully explain. Why? Why would the human brain be built this way? Why would losing something hurt more than gaining something feels good? The answer is not psychological. It is evolutionary. And it goes back to a world where the stakes of losing anything were not inconvenience. They were death. For most of human history, resources were not replaceable. If you found a sharp stone that worked well for cutting, losing it did not mean you went to the store and bought another one. It meant hours of searching. It meant vulnerability. It meant the difference between eating and not eating. Between being safe and not being safe. In that world, the people who held on to things, who felt a strong pull toward keeping, toward saving, toward just in case, those people survived at higher rates than the people who discarded freely. The keepers outlived the discarders. Generation after generation. Until the pull to keep things was not just a habit. It was biology. And then something called the endowment effect made it even stronger. In 1990, economist Richard Thaler ran a simple experiment. He gave one group of students a coffee mug. He gave another group nothing but the option to buy one. Then he asked both groups to name a price. How much would you sell the mug for? How much would you pay to own it? The sellers wanted roughly twice what the buyers were willing to pay for the exact same mug. The only difference was ownership. The moment something became theirs, it became worth more. Not more in the world, more in their brain. Thaler called this the endowment effect. And it explains something that has probably confused you about yourself. Why things you never use still feel impossible to give away. Why the moment you decide to sell something, you suddenly feel like you underpriced it. Why items sitting in boxes in your attic feel more valuable than identical items in a shop. The moment your brain labels something as mine, it rewrites the value. It is no longer an object, it is an extension of you. And losing it stops feeling like decluttering. It starts feeling like amputation. But there is a third layer. And this one is the strangest. In 2012, researchers at Yale University put participants inside a brain scanner and asked them to make decisions about objects they owned. When told an object was going to be taken away, specific regions of the brain lit up. Not the regions associated with disappointment. Not the regions associated with frustration. The anterior cingulate cortex. The insula. The same neural regions that activate when you experience physical pain. Your brain does not distinguish between losing a possession and being physically harmed. At a neurological level, they register as the same category of event. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic language. This is what the scanner showed. So when you feel resistance to throwing something away, you are not being irrational. You're not being weak. You're experiencing something closer to pain. Low grade, diffuse, easy to dismiss, but pain nonetheless. And your brain, being your brain, responds the way it always responds to pain. It tells you to stop. Now combine all three of these things. Loss aversion that makes every potential loss feel twice as heavy as any equivalent gain. The endowment effect that rewrites the value of everything you own the moment you own it. And a neurological pain response that activates when you contemplate letting go. All three of these systems are running simultaneously every time you stand in front of your closet trying to decide whether to keep a jacket you have not worn in 2 years. You are not failing at a simple task. You are fighting three ancient systems that were designed to make that task feel impossible. And here's the part nobody talks about. These systems worked for hundreds of thousands of years in a world of genuine scarcity that kept your ancestors alive. The pull to keep things was not clutter. It was intelligence. It was your genome doing exactly what it was selected to do. The problem is not the system. The problem is the mismatch. You live in a world of abundance so extreme that your ancestors could not have imagined it. A world where replacing almost anything cost less effort than it once cost to find it in the first place. A world where storage units are one of the fastest growing industries on the planet precisely because millions of people are paying money every month to store things they will never use again, even when keeping them costs more than replacing them would. The ancient calculator in your brain has not been updated for this world. It is still running the numbers from 50,000 years ago, when keeping everything made sense, when nothing could be replaced, when the voice that said, "What if I need this someday?" was not anxiety. It was wisdom. You did not inherit clutter. You inherited survival. It is evidence that something went very right for a very long time. In a world that no longer exists, and the voice that makes it hard to let go, maybe give it a little credit before you throw it away.